Hey, for those of you watching, this is Greg Harkavy, executive coach at Building Champions, and also my coach. Hey, Greg, how are you doing today?
Great. How about yourself?
I'm doing awesome. Hey, so for those of the people out there that don't know you, can you share a little bit about who you are and what you do, and maybe even a little background? I got a great story.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe the first things first. I've been married for over 20 years to Rachel, and we have 6 kids living in Huntington Beach. With the stay-at-home reality, they're all home. So they're doing distance learning, and right now it's nice and quiet, which is a nice little break. But as you can see, your background and my background, we've got a surf theme, so we get to share kind of that passion as well. But I was in the mortgage industry for 13 years before becoming a coach, and I've been coaching to the mortgage industry for about 20 years. So uh, about 33 years of experience.
Just a
Love the
few.
mortgage industry. Yeah. Um, love coaching people in it and all of the beauty. And this year's been insane, record volume, but different dynamics than anybody has ever dealt with. So it's been a lot of intense and also celebratory conversations as we wrap up the year. But it's been quite the challenge for I think people trying to manage the opportunity and also just balance in life. And we coach to that. So
Yeah. And you and I have known each other for probably at least 10 years, if not more. I'm
yeah,
trying to figure how long, but go back a long time. And there's been a lot of crossover. You've coached a lot of leaders and managers that I used to recruit with on the outside, and
hmm
some on the inside as well that I'm working with right now, Jason out in Hawaii. Um,
yeah,
hey, why don't you kind of break down? I know we want to talk about 4 things. One of them is, I wanted to ask you about coaching and when someone's ready, on that note. And then also kind of habits and behaviors of producers and leaders, like best
hmm
practices that you see from top producers and leaders. Some disciplines around business planning and even with the Building Champions, uh, life planning and how that all comes into play. And then lastly, just wrap it up with how you see the best producers and leaders measure themselves and kind of course correct, either up or down as things change in the market, like COVID we're all dealing with, or other things that happen over time too. So
sounds great.
maybe starting first, what and when is someone ready for coaching from your perspective?
Yeah, the what and the when I think are tied together. And I think when somebody realizes that they need to grow, like their current reality might be fine, but they know there's something more, and maybe they haven't taken time to really figure out what that more looks like. They haven't maybe had the outside insight. We get into our routines, and oftentimes when we get into our routines, we're not hearing what a different perspective might be like. So if you're sensing like there's more potential within you or your business, that's usually the first little inkling that you're probably ready for coaching. And the when piece is timing's everything. You have to be committed to the process. So you need to have time available for it. You need to actually commit to action. And that being said, I mean, the mortgage industry, we might be flush with cash, but also the when is affordability. What's the investment? What can I expect for a return? So if you have some clarity on what you want to achieve, then I think that's the basis of your first conversation with a potential coach.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head too, as far as action, like the coaching component. I mean, you have to find the right coach. You have to
Mhm.
be open to the time commitment, the financial commitment, and then you gotta do the work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey,
At the end of the day.
what about like how often, or what are people most looking for when they come to you? Like, what is the major thing that you hear people, if there's a common theme, they're looking
Mhm.
to get out of a coach and that
Yeah.
relationship?
Yeah. Usually people are looking for two things, and maybe they don't couch it this way, but it's help me manage my time or help me become more productive. And productivity usually looks like revenue, right? I mean, whether it's personal earnings or the responsibility of the business. But those are usually the two things people come to us about. And you can't really manage time. And revenue is important, but we need to understand holistically before we help you manage your priorities. Are you really clear on what they are? And so we don't start with priority management. We actually start with a holistic approach. We want to know what self leadership looks like, and self leadership precedes leading others. So we really start with you as an individual to really take time on getting clear on what that looks like. And from that, what's your vision? Where are you headed for the business? What is it that you want to belong to? What do you deeply value? Why would people seek you out? Like, what are the qualities that are important about doing business with you? Why are you here? And where are you headed? And we start there. So when those things are identified, we can get into really what people are asking for, which is help me with time and money.
Yeah.
Let's help with get clear with your priorities, and then we can actually help figuring out a bridge to that. Because typically, if I was in an elevator and you asked me what's coaching about, I'd say, well, we help people get really clear on where they want to go. Then we help them get really honest with their current reality. There's always a gap in between those two. And we help walk alongside them with a plan to execute to closing the gap. And
I love it.
that's it.
That's crazy too, just going through the whole process of the life plan and then tying it to your business plan with your 3B vision and everything that goes into it. It's really interesting because your personal life is so tied into your business life. And when you prioritize, which I know me going through that exercise with you, it was really interesting as I started thinking about where my priorities were, and some of them were out of whack, and they didn't align, and it didn't make my work and personal life balance very well. But it's been great over these last 6 months going through that process with you. And I just helps me be more clear on what I need to do when I'm working, priority highest to lowest, and just kind of continue with the actions I need to take every day.
Yeah, and in the day to day, we don't always look at things that way. My wife and I will be leaving this weekend to review our life plan for the year. 2020 played differently than anybody could have imagined. But if we don't go back and look at what did we intend to do and compare it to what actually happened, now how do we need to adjust? Which ironically might be a part of what we talk about with some of the top producers, but you have to take inventory, to know what your priorities are, and then be honest with how you're actually doing to try and get to where you want to be. So
yeah. Hey, so now you're coaching someone, or a lot of people, or your whole company is. What are some of the kind of best practices or habits and behaviors that you see consistently among all the top producers you coach and a lot of the leaders that you coach in the executive program?
Yeah, and I mean, some of the best habits and behaviors that I see is people run their business like a business. They don't look at it as a job, but they truly take ownership of every aspect of the business. So when I'm talking to top producers, I had a great coaching session with somebody yesterday. It's going to be about 175 million, which is about a personal best for this individual. They've been in the top 200 historically for the last 10 years or so. But what's interesting is the way this person approached their business. They're actually better positioned today with a better platform to grow next year. So they didn't just reap. And we were talking about the fact that they didn't strip mine. They didn't try and get everything they could out of it without thinking about how do we build our structure towards the future? Where's our business going to come from? So that they think strategically. They think about the team and the talent and the alignment necessary. Now they're getting opportunities that, they have opportunities that could exceed 300 million next year. But it was because they didn't lose sight of what they're trying to accomplish. So just this discipline and rigor to not only just do the business at hand, but thinking strategically, working with the team. A lot of people in this business this year are exhausted. He's done a really good job of engaging hungry, humble people that want to grow. And this is from just an originator that leads a team, but I see the same trait in CEOs. The CEOs thinking the same way about the business. They're thinking about how do we set people up for success? What is it that's most important, the nuts and bolts of the business? And they don't lose sight of what it's like to be an originator. But the whole team, if they're all designed to do really what they need to do, there's just an alignment. So you start making daily decisions because you're clear on where you're headed. So
yeah,
that
seems to always be the pickle too. It's like everybody's having a ton of success. We're all wondering what rates will do. I think Powell said today that they're going to see near zero rates, if not zero rates through 2023, which is phenomenal for us. But it also kind of brings that, hey, we're kicking butt in a refi market because rates are low. The purchase market is going bananas. And what if rates go up? How do I maintain this level of production? And you have to really be strategic and intentional about adding more referral partners, getting more sophisticated with your database and marketing, maybe finding new lead sources. Like this whole evolution with COVID has really thrown a lot of new elements into, I think, people's business plans too, because we're all remote, doing things a lot. It seems like it's easier to scale just remotely. Everybody's gotten straight on how to communicate and lead without being in person.
Yeah. Yeah. But even in that, like, how are you meeting new people? Are you paying attention to different ways of getting after the business? Are you still a student? Right. And looking for different and new approaches. So I think the best practices, they're constantly learning.
Yeah.
They never feel like they've got it figured out. They might have confidence, but they're not complacent.
Well, we've all got new competition that's come out of this too. That's a lot more in our face. The whole online lending with the Quickens, or, there's new ways to evolve, even, community-based mortgage, lending that exists prior to COVID with some combination of online and how that looks in the future. So best practices on and behaviors. What about disciplines? Are there any consistent disciplines you see among like leaders and producers that are just kind of, set the top producers apart from, mid-level or lower producers?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different angles on that. I want to maybe touch on two, if that's okay. I mean, number one is the discipline for on time, and to be able to reflect on and think strategically about the business as a regular discipline. That means you're scheduling uninterrupted time sometime during the week. I mean, the work week looks maybe different now in the stay-at-home environment than it did before, where there isn't a lot of separation. But it's really when you're thinking about the business, you're thinking about your own individual performance, where you believe your strengths and where your ultimate contribution can be. You're thinking about things differently. Maybe you're reading, researching, listening to podcasts. That's one of the disciplines that I think separates. And it's where the opportunity is. A lot of people have learned the proficiencies of the business that are really good performers, but the best, they're continual learners, and they're setting a time that on time to think on things.
Are there specific topics that you think those top producers and leaders really focus on?
Oh gosh, I don't want to generalize it, but it can be as diverse as just learning from other top producers, right? So being connected in to a lot of the resources that this industry has, whether it's a mortgage coach or listening to podcasts, you're adding value here. But I think one thing that I do see is they go to industry leaders and want to learn, what are you doing well? Sometimes they're networking and brainstorming and sharing best practices with each other. So that's like inside the industry. Outside of it, anything from learning more about social networking, technology, as well as, I think, leadership and team effectiveness. Those are subject matters that become critically important, especially as a top producer, because you're not alone. You've got a team. So really learning how well do I lead people? Are we unified? Am I paying attention to their well-being and the sustainability of what we do? Do I know how to evaluate talent? Things of that nature. Am I putting people in the right positions to win? Those are, again, separators where I see a really good producer versus a great one. They're leading healthy teams.
That's pretty awesome. Well, I know you get to coach, and your company gets to coach a lot of the top producers in the country. So
Yeah.
you're almost like a case study for what works, and it's neat to hear some of the common themes there.
Yeah.
What about just rounding it out or finishing up? You've got the plan, you've got the priorities, you've got the disciplines, the learning. How do you see people kind of manage, or not manage, but kind of measure the results against their plan to what they're actually doing, and then, course correcting along the way, either up or down?
Yeah. So the key discipline in that, Steve, is regular review. Whatever you use, regular review. If you're not at least reviewing monthly and knowing your numbers, then everything else kind of falls by the wayside. I think you have to be able to, be clear on what are your goals for the year, break it down maybe into quarters. Then on a monthly basis, do we know where our business is coming from? Do we know what our pull-through rates are? Where are the opportunities? What are maybe underperforming pillars in our business, and what are maybe overperforming? What disciplines are we doing that are creating the results? Where do we maybe need to adjust based off of certain things? So, an example could be, a lot of people will emotionalize certain relationships or partnerships they think are super productive. And it might be because they talk to them a lot, and maybe they even get a lot of leads, But when they sometimes look at it and say, wait a minute, I've gotten 100 leads from this person. They're about 70% of my time. Their pull-through rate is we have like 10 closings. Maybe they're not exactly what I thought they were, even though maybe I enjoy them or it feels like we're busy, but we're not effective. You know, so unless you're taking time to understand your numbers objectively and not emotionalizing them, it's really hard, but you should be looking at it monthly. And if you're treating your business like a business and owner, you know, almost true up every month as if you're managing a P&L. If you're a producing branch manager, you are probably, but as an individual producer, you should have a similar discipline. How are we progressing? What's in the pipeline? What needs to happen?
Yeah, it's interesting how you said that too, because you think about the performing stuff is going to be going well and you want to keep that going, but really quantifying the underperforming and figuring out, is this worth more time? Is there a different way to do it? Or is it something that you should really invest less time in?
Yeah, I mean, everything's a resource allocation. It's either time or money or energy, right? So knowing how much energy you're proportionally putting into something versus what you're getting in return, I think is really important. So, you know, in building champions language, we call it knowing your numbers. We have a tool, we call it the navigator, that allows people to track all that information. And it's really, it's not enough if you don't do it every month though. It should not be a one and done.
Yeah. Like talk to people too. It's like, all right, here's you're either you didn't hit your goal. So what do we need to do to, help you hit it? Or you hit it, which is great. Congratulations. Or you exceeded it. Congratulations also. But like, hey, is your goal too low? You seem to be consistently outperforming your goal.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of a fun little conversation to have with people in production and just making sure you're pushing them. Hey, just to finish up here, what are like one or two things you're super excited about getting into 2021?
Well, I don't know if this is a fair thing, but I'm excited for maybe different conversations than COVID. You know, God willing, that's the case. But really, it's just what are the possibilities? I do think the mortgage industry is set up for another really strong year, but it should be a year of improvement. It should be a year that people think about sustainability and legacy. 2020, with all its challenges, has been a gift. So
Sure.
what I would love to see is how are people going to take the gift of 2020 and reinvest in some meaningful ways. So seeing innovation, I think, is going to be really important. I'm excited about maybe seeing people become more community effective. And what I mean by that is, no matter what the limitations are, people planning, at least no matter what happens, whether it's in person or if it's going to be virtual, are they thinking about new ways of being effective and not allowing maybe some of the real challenges that we're dealing with to deviate from the plans or the desires you have to impact people. So I get excited about the ideation around that and to see what comes of it. And yeah, I don't know, a lot more I think I could be excited about that might take longer than this video, but that one's very unique.
Well, I think like you had said, I think 2020 has been a blessing for everybody. I mean, normally stuff that's negative in the economy impacts mortgage first. And, for the first time in my career, it's been the complete opposite. So, hey, I appreciate you on a personal level and also on a professional level, everything you do, everything your company does. And I just want to say, thanks, because I know you guys spend a lot of time and energy outside of your organization and who you coach, just trying to help people be better. So yeah, that's a gift.
It's a pleasure to have this relationship with you, Steve. And yeah, I mean, that's what we do. The people that join our team, we want to make a positive impact on every person we come in contact with, one person at a time. That's our purpose statement. And when you talk to anybody on the team, you see that that's our spark. So for us to help people like you and anybody that wants help, we're all in. So
I love it.
It's great to be a part of it.
Well, thank you for all you do. And this time, I know you're slammed, and just wanted to say I appreciate it. And hopefully we'll get out and have a traditional board meeting here at some point here in the near future.
There you go. The best kind of board meeting.
Right? Good swell and warmer water after the winter.
There you go. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.